and welcome back to Trains Up North. Today we're going to be looking at the north end of the layout and also the loop that I showed you in the last episode. Since the last episode I have been busy and I've completed all the main line. All the foam underlay is in, the track has been glued down on top. I've put a number of point motors in. I've still got a load to do, but I've not got that many left. So moving over here, on this point motor here, you can see that I've still got to trim the wire that comes up from the point motor through the points. Previously I've used wire cutters, however today I'm going to use my trusty Dremel. So this is a Dremel 3000. I like it because it's got variable speed. If you're going to use a Dremel when you're using cutting discs with it, please make sure that you wear eye protection. So the cutting disc I've got in this Dremel is the EZ type, and to change it you pull that collar back, turn the disc, and the disc just comes off. So you've got the disc there. It's a 38mm disc, designed for cutting metal. So I pull the collar back, put the disc in, turn it, and it locks in place. So I can check that it works, check that it's not wonky. I find the EZ discs much better than the standard cutting discs. So if you use those type of cutting discs, they're a bit thinner, they're a bit more fragile, and those cutting discs, what you have is the shaft at the end of the Dremel, which has a little screw in the end. So you undo that screw, put the disc in, and then tighten it back up, and that's how they work. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of them. I find them a little bit less robust, shall we say. So the EZ discs, like I say, I love them, they work. A couple of other things that I will say if you're using a Dremel: if you're cutting something that's steel, make sure that your locos and speakers and things like that, phones, are not anywhere near. The reason being, motors are magnetic, and if you're cutting steel, you'll get all the little sparks coming off, and you'll find that they end up finding the way into your motors and speakers and things like that. When you're using your Dremel, like I say, you'll see all the sparks flying off, so you want to wear eye protection, because the last thing you want is sparks going in your eye. So with your Dremel, if you're going to be cutting track, just be aware that if you're using it like that, then you can end up with an angle on it. So what I mean is, if you're coming along and you're trying to cut your track, it just has an angle to it because you can't get it flat a lot of the time. So for that reason, if I'm cutting track and it's glued down, I will use the flexi shaft that comes with this. So you just unscrew that collar, and then the flexi shaft attaches to that, and then instead of putting your tool in the end, the flexi shaft goes in the end, and the tool goes in the end of the flexi shaft, and it just allows you to get into those little tight spaces that otherwise you struggle to get into. The other way of doing it is you cut it before you lay the track. You may have noticed I've got a piece of plastic, red piece of plastic on the rail there. What I've been doing is these lines are all going to have overhead power for the trains. So where the masts are going, I've just been marking them out using these Pico OLE mast jigs. These jigs are dead simple. You get from Pico lengths of overhead line like that, if you can see. They come in different sizes, so these shorter ones like that, you use them on the curves where the masts are closer together, and on the straight sections you use ones that are a lot longer. So you want to do this before you start ballasting. You get 2 in a pack of the red things. The little knobbly bit in the middle, if you hook one end of your line over that and hook the other end of the line over the one at the other end, and look at where the cable runs. It needs to be between your running lines, because if it's over here somewhere, then your pantograph isn't going to touch it, because your pantograph sits in the middle of the track. I can tell off that I've got quite a bit left to play with. So what I'm going to do is just move that to one side, and I'm going to try a slightly longer one. So I've put a slightly longer one on there. It is black and it's against a dark background, so it might be a little bit difficult to see. So once you know where your masts are going, what you can do is get a pencil or a pen and just mark it through the hole. They are quite flexible. So at a later date, what I'll do is I'll drill a hole and then pop these masts in. So these masts, if you see there where I've got the hole, they slot in and they come with a little nut, like a wing nut, plastic one, and you just screw it in from underneath. They are flexible, so if you knock them, they do bend a little bit. Obviously that's not tight, so it will swing round for now. If you knock it too much, then yeah, it's plastic, it's going to break. These are the Dremel ones. I know there are other manufacturers out there that make metal masts. So there is a company out there, I can't remember off the top of my head what they're called, but they do portals in brass. They look amazing. I'm going to get myself a couple and see how they are to make. You've got, and again, I'm being rubbish today. Things are just going out of my mind and I'm struggling. So I will put it on the bottom of the screen. There is another company that does, I can't remember the laser board or card, MDF, something like that, portals that are apparently really quite easy to do. Where I'm putting masts, I use the hole. Where I'm putting portals, I use the flat end. And hopefully you'll see there the little like lug in the middle, and they just fit round the rails. So now we've got the track laid, we've got the point motors installed and trimmed as far as we can. So we're good to run trains, aren't we? We've got our droppers. Well, no, not quite, because what we need to do is connect all the droppers underneath so we can have power. So I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, I use these. So that bar at the top connects all the black, and that one connects all the red. What I've done is just cut them down so they come in a long length, cut them in half, and then made sure that the insulated bit is to the middle to reduce the risk of a short. They come in different sizes, so I've got a few different sizes. So what you do is put one black feed in, and then all the rest of the droppers just screw in. And at that end you put one red feed in, and it'll feed all the droppers. I wire my layout using a combination of blue and brown cable, and I've also now got some red and black cable. So the black cable and the blue cable are at the back of the layout, the brown and the red are towards the front. The reason I've got a mix of two different colours there, or four different colours there, is basically because I've run out of cable, and when I went to screw fix, the cheapest one that I could get that would do what I wanted wasn't blue and brown, it was red and black. So that's the only reason I've changed. On my layout, as I think I've mentioned, I do have a couple of reverse loops. I've actually got 3 reverse loops. Now, reverse loops do pose a little bit of a problem for us with model railways, because we have a positive and a negative rail, and on the loop it actually reverses, so we'd end up with the negative and positive touching, which creates a short circuit. So what we do at the start of your loop, so here we've got the outer loop at the west side of the layout, and I've got a couple of insulated rail joints, and then I've got a couple of insulated rail joints again on the inner loop, and then round at the other side of the layout where the loop finishes, again we'll have insulated rail joints. The dropper cables that I've used on the reverse section are a different colour. So I've used yellow and green. It's actually earth cable, but the cable don't know what it's doing. And then I've used some white cable that I had knocking around. So then what we do is you get something like this. So this is an LK200 manufactured by Lenz. They are definitely not cheap, but reliability wise I've not found anything better. Where it says in, you put your feed from your power supply, so your positive and your negative, it doesn't matter which way round they go. And there where it says out, you'd put your feed that goes from this to your track, so to the insulated or isolated loop. You will need one of these for each reverse loop that you've got. So yeah, as I said, they're not cheap, they're about 70 quid a piece, and unfortunately I need 3 or 4 because I've also got a turntable, and with a turntable you also have the same issue. You can get a cheaper product from Gagemaster, so that's the sort of thing you'd get from Gagemaster. Let's get rid of that Lenz one. And yeah, it's similar. It has a couple of wires that go to your power, a couple of wires that go to your track. Would I recommend these from Gagemaster? They're about 40-50 quid, so they are a lot cheaper than the Lenz ones. Would I recommend them? No, I wouldn't. I've had a couple of these and I've had reliability issues with them, so I personally wouldn't use them. The ones that I've got now, I'm just going to either give them away or send them for recycling, because I don't know about you, but when I come to play trains I want it to work, especially if I've spent 50-60 quid. I don't want to have to start faffing around changing the reverse loop modules. Gagemaster are not here to defend themselves, and what I will point out is Gagemaster customer services are really good. and I dare say if I sent the ones that I've got that don't work back to Gauge Master, they probably would fix or replace them. The reason I'm saying this, I haven't asked them, so I might be wrong, so don't quote me, but the reason I'm saying it is because my Gauge Master Prodigy Advanced controller broke a few years ago. It's a good number of years old, but I contacted Gauge Master. They said, oh yeah, send it back to us and we'll have a look. I sent it back to them, expecting it to cost me a couple of quid for them to fix it. They sent it back probably about a week later, good as new, and they even covered the cost of the postage. So on that note, I can't knock Gauge Master for the customer services. However, this product, garbage. So as you can see here as well, we've got a nice shiny rail. If you go and look at the real railway, these shiny steel rails aren't shiny steel rails for very long, and they get rust on them. Now, the top surface where trains are running frequently will remain quite clean and shiny, but in sidings and places where you don't get frequent trains, you do get the build-up of rust on it, especially when it's been a bit wet, the weather. On models, what we can do is we can paint the sides of the rails, but what we want to do is ensure that the top surface of the rails is kept nice and clean, because we need that to conduct the electric from that rail into our train. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my airbrush out and I'm going to spray the sides of the rails, and I'll get it on the top of the rails, but that's no biggie, we can clean the rails afterwards. So while I'm doing that, with the magic of video, I'm going to also connect all the electrics underneath. I'm not going to film myself doing that because it's basically me stripping the ends off some wires and screwing them in to a block connector like that. So what I do is put one cable in each side, so I get two out of each one. If you want me to do a video where I do that, then let me know in the comments below, but I'm sure most people could figure that out. If you don't have an airbrush, you can always use a small paintbrush. However, it will take you a little bit longer, but if you can't afford an airbrush, you don't have one, then nothing wrong with doing it by hand. I did it by hand for many years. If you are going down the airbrush route, then you can buy canisters with compressed air in them and cheap airbrush kits. I'd shy away from them. Spend a little bit more money, get a proper compressor that you can plug in, and a half decent airbrush, and you shouldn't be going far wrong. So the paint I'm going to be using in my airbrush is this. It's Light Rust from Vallejo, and what I'm going to do is just mix it with a little bit of acrylic thinners. It's acrylic paint, so I'm using acrylic thinners. If you're using enamel paint, make sure you use enamel thinners. It sounds quite obvious, but it is easy to get wrong. So I've just mixed the paint up. I've mixed it up in the cup, and then what I'm doing is several passes just like that, and in no time the track will be covered. So I'm not actually an expert at airbrushing, I'm new to it, so this is a bit of a learning process as we go along. I'm still sort of learning what settings to have the airbrush compressor set at. I think I've probably got it set a little bit too high. I've now got paint contamination on the railhead, which doesn't conduct electricity very well. So what I'm going to do is use this good old-fashioned track rubber just to clean the surface. Now, I know there's people that don't like track rubbers. I use them. I've never had issues using them, especially with these really soft ones. I am going to do a video on different ways of cleaning track, but for now I'm thinking, have we been using these track rubbers wrong for all these years? Because we always see people cleaning track with the track rubber like that, which is great, it works, but it wears a groove. And if you can see there now, there's 2 lines on the track rubber where I've been using it. But I've not paid for that bit and that bit of this rubber. I paid for it all. So if I use it in a circular motion, like that, I don't get the grooves. There were grooves in it. Just a thought. Let me know in the comments below what you think. So as you've probably just seen, it was running okay until this train, the tamper, got to here, and then we had a bit of an issue. Looking at it, I can immediately see what I've done wrong. That is an electrofrog point, and I've put an insulated rail joint there, but not one there. So what I was going to do is get my Dremel out and just run through that joint with the Dremel, just so it's in effect insulated. But rather than use the Dremel, I'm just going to go through with a fine tooth saw, which will do the same job. I'm going to turn the track off first. That would have been the wise thing to do. If you work on it and it's live and you touch both rails, you get a bit of a spark and the controller doesn't like it. Right, so I've just cut through that joint, so it's got a gap now there. Yes, it hasn't got a fish plate joining the two, but I'm not too worried about that because of the track being glued either side. I am expecting when I turn the track power back on that this loco might have an issue with this point. Still, the reason for that is actually a dead section of track at the moment, basically because I haven't got a point motor to go in there. So once the point motor goes in, that electrofrog will be powered through the point motor. So I'm going to turn track power back on and we'll see whether it copes with it. So yeah, as we saw there, it coped with it. However, going back across, I was getting a bit cocky, to be fair. Like I said, there's no point motor, so that, and I've taken the spring out, so obviously the blades just move, so it's actually derailed. I've stopped it before I had any issues. So yeah, I'm not too worried. I know my track works. I will get some more point motors when funds allow. However, it is an expensive thing given how many I need. So, but the ones that I've got motors on and that are working right, this line here and this line at the back. So that's on the outer loop, on the reverse loop. That line and that line is the inner reverse loop. I can't run anything around that yet because yeah, that point's not motorised, that one isn't. Next one up, that is. But even if I've motorised all the points tomorrow, I still couldn't run anything on that inner loop because I haven't got a second or even a third, because I have got two. I've got one at this west end, I've got one at the south end. Reverse loop modules, yes, I have got some of the old Gauge Master ones, but I don't like them. I think they're garbage, so I'm not using them. So yeah, there will be some videos coming out, hopefully fairly soon, which will be more trains running. In the meantime, what I'm going to be doing is continuing to mark out the overhead line along these tracks, and then once I know where the overhead line masts are going, I'm going to start putting in the cable trunking. So I'm going to be putting this sort of stuff in, and these cable troughs, along with the orange pipe which will go underneath the track to carry cables from one side to the other. that trunking, you can imagine it, will be like that, with something like that. It'll form like a shoulder along the track. So once I've got that in, and that's glued and sorted, I can then ballast and use that as my edge. Once I've ballasted, this little bad boy will be out, tamping the track, so that we can run trains at higher speeds. As I ballast, I'll be putting in light motors, and then what I'll do is I'll mark out where the raised section is going to be, because the raised section is going to be at the back, and then it's going to come across these 4 lines somewhere, I'm not quite sure where. Continue round sort of behind where the camera is now, and then on the top level I'm going to have another heritage station. So the heritage station will go from the very back at the south end through the main station. As it goes through the main station, it rises up on a 2% gradient. It's going to cross the main lines and then go to a heritage station that's raised. A couple of reasons that I wanted to do that. One, having a railway that's on a couple of levels will get away from that flat earth look that you sometimes get on model railways when you're on baseboards like this. And 2, it'll hide the reverse loops. So all the reverse loops will be in tunnels. Yes, that does pose issues if you get derailments, so I'm going to have access hatches to deal with that. So if you don't put an access hatch in a tunnel and it's longer than your train, you can guarantee you will have a derailment, and then you'll be fishing in with your arm and you'll start damaging stuff, and it's not good. So if you have little access points where you can either lift the tunnel off or just open it up so you can get your hand in and retrieve things that have derailed or broken down. Because yeah, models for whatever reason will always break down at the most inconvenient place. It's some sort of unwritten law of model railways. So I think that's enough of me rambling on. So don't forget, give us a thumbs up, like the video, unless you think it's absolute bobbins, in which case let me know in the comments that it's crap and what you think I could do to improve it, and I'll try my best. Like I said, comment. I enjoy reading them, especially if the constructive criticism, or even just a yeah, that looks good mate, carry on, gives me a bit of encouragement to keep going. Share the video to people you think might like it. The more people that share the video and come to the channel, the bigger the channel will get. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any of these wonderful videos. If you're new to the channel, go back and have a look at the past videos. Some of them are better than others, I admit. I'd like just to say thank you to the people that have already subscribed. Take care, until next time, goodbye.